Hello, and welcome to Marshall Parker and Weber's webinar, How to Start the Conversation About Long-Term Care Planning. My name is Tammy Weber. I'm the managing attorney at Marshall Parker and Weber, and I'm a certified elder law attorney. Some people may say, well, really, what does long-term care mean? We hear that term, but we don't know really what does that mean. Well, it could be different things. But it would mean either as you age or your loved one ages or an event happens, you need care for more than a short time. And that care may be in your home. It may be in a personal care home. It may be an extended facility or a nursing facility. So today we're going to talk about how to start the conversation. I would be remiss in not acknowledging the current times that we're in here at the end of 2020. And I know this may be difficult for many people, and I applaud you if you're listening and trying to get more information in case a crisis does happen to you or your loved ones. So how do you start the conversation about long-term care? So as you're listening today, if you're listening live, know that we will have a recording of this on our website, paelderlaw.com. But I would say get a notepad next to you. So you can talk to your children. So if you're a parent and you thought, I really need to start talking about this to my children, that would be one conversation. Sometimes our clients or children of the parents say, oh boy, I think it's time to talk to my parents. I haven't been able to get them in to see you, but how do I start? So the first thing is really just educate yourself. So I've already mentioned our website, paelderlaw.com. We also send what we call the Marshall Parker Weber Law Alert once a month via email. If you'd like to receive that, you can send an email to webmail, WEBMAIL, at paelderlaw.com, and we'll get you on the list. You just get that once a month. Good way of education about this topic. And as we go, and as you talk, develop and make your checklist better. So if you're going to talk to your parents, it would make sense to have all your siblings, if you are not an only child, around. If you're going to talk to your children, on the flip side, have them all in the same room at the same time and have the conversation at once. The reason why we're doing this webinar now is we have found in the past that many people do those and have those conversations around the holiday time. We hope it can be in person, but some people are even having virtual holidays. So you can do this by Zoom as well. What would be the first topic? Well, sometimes it's easier to start with healthcare. It depends. You know, a trick might be, or a tip might be, oh, I forget, Mom, you know, did your mother live? Yeah, I remember she was in a nursing home. What was going on with her health? Did she have a health event? Did she have dementia or Alzheimer's? Just remind me, and sort of gently go into the family health history. If you as a child are beginning this conversation with your parents, you're going to get a sense of whether or not they're ready to talk about it or not. And then you would talk about, well, what do they want to do if there's a healthcare crisis? Stay at home. Some people call that aging in place. Get care in a facility. So that could be a personal care home. Some people refer to those as assisted living facilities or a nursing home, or have child caregivers help them. That's a whole topic in and of itself, but sort of get a sense. So I've had clients on both ends of the spectrum. Most of the clients will say, I'd rather stay at home. I don't want to go to a nursing home. But there are some that say, I have raised my children. I want them to have a life. I had a wonderful life, and I certainly wouldn't want to even consider asking them or taking them up on a suggestion that they would care for me in my home. Every case and plan is different. On the flip side, some parents I've seen assume and expect their children, if they're physically close, are going to care for them in their home. So that's a good way to get a lay of the land. And as we talk today, these conversations, this is not going to get wrapped up all in one talk. And even if you make great headway, I suggest that you should do a little tune-up every once in a while as things happen. So next, you might not get too far on the healthcare options. So an easier way to sort of step back is, hey, what's my healthcare coverage? I have MEDICARE, if they're over 65 or they've been disabled for a period of time. And here's my supplemental insurance with XYZ company. My cards are in my wallet. Here's where I keep them. Hey, it would be a great idea if many of our clients or their family members take a picture on their cell phone to keep those so they have them in case of an emergency. And they do that in addition to a medication list. It's great to keep a medication list updated. Some people put that on the refrigerator in writing and additionally in their phone in case there will be an emergency. Another coverage potential is what's called a veteran's benefit. So if your parent or you or are either a veteran that served during a period of wartime and was other than honorably discharged and meets certain income and asset restrictions, there's a possibility of receiving an additional pension called aid and attendance. We've done other webinars and written articles on this. So if you want to find out more about that, go to our website and type in aid, AID, and attendance, and you'll find out some more about that. Other things would be, do you or your parents have long-term care insurance? Find out where it is, what it's covered. Does it cover, for example, only nursing home, or does it cover home care or personal care types of things? You can do this all generally without seeming like you're being too intrusive into your parents' life. Then the next thing that takes it a more of a level is finances. So I will tell you that if you start asking about money with most people, they're going to go, you just want my money. You want to inherit a lot of money. So be very careful. There's a way to find out about finances and not having the exact numbers. So just ask mom and dad, or mom and dad, you can share with your children or grandchildren. Here are the things that I own. I own my house. I own the hunting property. It's joint with your grandmother or whoever it is held with. And where are these assets? So sometimes we find of families that have inherited something a long time ago from their parents, maybe in another state, and they may own it with their siblings. Very important to know where it is and how it's titled. Same thing with bank accounts, retirement accounts, savings bonds, etc. Where are they? So it's easy to say, I do all my banking at this bank or this credit union, and I have savings and checking and money market account, and my financial planner is this person, and here's his or her contact information, etc. Get it all together. Ask about income. You don't need to know the amount of money, but where is it coming from? So is it Social Security? Is it retirement? Are you getting monthly required minimum distributions from a retirement account? Do you have a pension, etc.? Is there any debt? Are there any liens? Where are those papers in the house? Start developing a plan. A good plan starts having the information. So as you're having the conversation, maybe not the first one, Maybe the second one, you may want to assign a scribe who's going to put everything down and circulate it by email, just like you would circulate an address and cell phone number list with your family. Then you want to look at your legal documents. These could be different for various people. So a will, last will and testament, which is the document that says where things are going to go when you die. Powers of attorney are lifetime documents. So typically there will be a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney or some combination. And we also see people who have a separate document called a living will or an advance directive. Some people have trusts. There could be revocable or living trusts, and there could be irrevocable trusts. Both have different purposes. But just knowing where they are, and do they need to be updated? Good question. If you're sitting there having the conversation with your parents and you're in your 50s and your parents go, I haven't been to the lawyer for a while. I think the last time I did my will, you were like 15 and I picked my, your Aunt Sally to be in charge of you if I were to pass away. If that's the case, there's probably a good chance it needs to be updated. Where are these original documents? Are they in the home? Are they in a safe deposit box? Have they been left with the attorney? Very important just to know these kinds of details. So as you're thinking about this, let's just step back. I'll share with you what we see often as the goals of our clients collectively. They want to stay in control, keep their independence. So really bear this in mind when you're having these conversations. They do want to understand their choices. They want to keep their financial security. Now, we are not financial advisors, but we recommend our clients speak with one. But our legal planning does impact the financial security. And they also, lastly, want to stay at home and age in place. So think about that as you're having the conversation and developing your checklist. What are some of the strategies for aging in place? So it's best to do these things when there isn't a crisis. We're going to talk later about what if the crisis happens earlier than expected, or before you got in to see the attorney or have the conversation. But the best is have your home assessed. So if the thought is, I want to stay in my home, is it a 2-story? Is there a bathroom? Is it only on the second floor? Where's the laundry? If I weren't able to do steps, would I have what I need accessible to me? Want to look into what would be the steps to improve the safety and comfort. Some of our clients have a contractor come out and say, if I do this, how much would it cost? Especially if they have a house with a lot of steps that are steep. They want to have a plan A and plan B. Plan A being paying the money to retrofit their current house, or plan B, making a hard but considered decision as to whether it would make sense to move to a different location, perhaps a one-level rancher as they age. So what are the steps? What's the cost to improve the safety and comfort? Investigate services. So for example, if something happened, or maybe you just say, boy, when I retire or when I get at that point in my life, the last thing I'm going to do or the first thing I'm going to get rid of is cooking. So you can look to see what are the services to provide healthy, compliant with your diet restrictions and have them deliver to your home once or twice. Or if you do have loved ones or family members or friends that are local, perhaps they would say, hey, if you decide to stay at home, I love to cook, I'll bring over a meal a week. Part of the discussion of family support. And then this might not be the first conversation, but how are you going to pay for this? So that's why it's good to know what the income is. So are your parents or you going to have the money to pay for it? Rarely, but sometimes we do have children that want to pay for the parents' needs. Or if you're going to go the public benefit route, and if you need to age in place for a period of time, you want to know what those rules are. So another level that's good to have of information for the conversation is, what are the numbers? What's the risk of needing long-term care? What's the cost if you need to go to a nursing home? What are the options to pay for that care? What are the general rules for public benefits? And find out, have you or your parents been giving anything away in the past 5 years? So let's take these one at a time. Under the numbers currently at age 65, 70% of people will need care at home or in a facility in their lifetime. Pretty high. So it's good that you're tuning in, getting educated to find out about paying for long-term care. 40% of those will need nursing home care. And of the people who will spend more than 5 years in a nursing home, it's a 10% number. And typically the time in a nursing home is 2 to 3 years for people who go there, longer for women, shorter for men, and that number gets skewed and can be skewed considerably if you're otherwise healthy and have a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. That could be 10 to 15 years in a facility. So there's a little bit of a backdrop for you. As of January 1st, 2021, the cost average in Pennsylvania of 1 year in a nursing home is over $133,000 per year. This number typically gets updated every January 1st, and this is the number we have just received. So $133,000 a year could make your savings go pretty quick. What are the options to pay? So you can pay privately. And again, this just really depends on client or your desire. Medicare has a really small payment, which we'll review in a minute. If you have received or gotten long-term care insurance, that's a way to pay for long-term care. Or you can plan to qualify if you are one of those 70% for Medicaid or medical assistance, which is a combination of federal and state money that pay for people who either need to physically be in a nursing home or meet that standard at home and don't have enough money to pay for care. So there's a resource limit. So imagine, for example, that you had to have a hip replacement. There was a fall, you went to the hospital, you were admitted for 3 nights, you either had surgery or they were trying to get you stable, and then you were discharged to a facility for care. So if there was a 3-night stay and you went to a facility and you needed the rehabilitation, Medicare currently pays days 1 to 20 in full, assuming you need and take the rehab. And then days 21 to 100 would be paid for by a combination of Medicare and your supplemental insurance. But there is a maximum of 100 days in a nursing home for each spell of illness that Medicare or Medicaid care in your supplement would cover. So will not pay for you to stay in the nursing home if something goes south after your surgery for your broken hip and you're just not safe to come home. 100 days is the max, and we find that very few people get that. Medicaid eligibility is based on assets. So if you're single, only a few $1,000s in assets to qualify financially to receive Medicaid. When you apply for Medicaid, the date that you file the application, in addition to proof that you physically need the service and your assets are below, the applicant's assets are below a few $1,000s, there is a question. Did you or your spouse transfer anything within the 5 years prior to the date of your application without receiving fair market value? So the general rule is anything more than $500 in a calendar month total creates a period of ineligibility. There are exceptions. Again, check out our website, paelderlaw.com, for more webinars that go in more detail on this topic. Once you get on Medicaid and you're having this conversation either with your children or your parents, you can have a few $1,000s and your house. So if you decided to either stay in your 2-story house or you had the 1-level rancher, but you needed to go to the nursing home, the plan just didn't work, and you got on Medicaid, but you still owned your house, there is a risk when you pass away. So if you pass away owning your home, the state has a claim against what's in your name alone, up to the amount that they paid for your care. So if you got on Medicaid and you have a $200,000 house and you didn't do any pre-planning and you died and the state paid $100,000 for your care during your lifetime, the Department of Human Services would have a claim against your probate estate, your house, for that $100,000. So it's really important to do pre-planning and see how your home is titled, whether it's in your name solely or if you've done some pre-planning. So in a bit more detail, early planning options, one is long-term care insurance. There are many, many different kinds. This field has evolved. Although we have expertise on our staff to individuals who have their insurance license, we do not sell it. But if you want a referral or a name of somebody, simply send us an email to webmail@paelderlaw.com and say, I listened to Tammy's webinar and can you give me some names? I would like to check this out. But you want to have a good rated company. And there are different kinds of long-term care insurance. Traditional, sort of like your homeowners. You pay your homeowner's insurance and you hope that you don't have a loss, but if you do, it's there to cover it. If you don't use it, the money's gone. There are some hybrid products that basically will allow you, depending on your age and whether or not you have the money to purchase them, and if your health is really good, they're a combination of paying for your care in a nursing home if you need it. And if you don't need it, or you don't use all of the policy, when you pass away, any money remaining in that policy goes to your heirs in the form of insurance. So that's a great product. So an early planning option. Another option for early planning that we hear from people are, oh, I'm just going to give some money to my kids now. I'm healthy. I know I'm going to get through those 5 years. I am good. I don't need that money. Well, proceed with caution. If you give your money or your property away, let me give you a story. Many, many years ago, a woman came in to see us and she said to me, I went to a general practice attorney and I spoke with them after my husband died. And we only had one son. And we spent so much time and didn't take vacations to pay for that house and get it as much as we loved it. So I transferred the house after my husband died to my only son. Because I thought, I'm going to get through the 5 years. I trusted he and his wife, and I lived there and everything was fine until, contrary to the age, the son died unexpectedly. And guess what? The son's will said, I leave everything to my wife, the daughter-in-law of my client. And the daughter-in-law sold the house, moved off to another state, and my client was out of luck. I could tell you many, many stories, But once you give something away without any strings, a completed gift, that gift you gave away is subject to the recipient's personal circumstances. It could be death, it could be gambling, it could be addiction, it could be married to a spouse that has a lot of control over your child. So be very careful. Another early planning option, and I say this because we want to make sure that you can get through that 5-year look back, is setting up asset protection trusts. So at the beginning of the webinar, I talked about revocable and irrevocable trusts. If you think in the future you would need to apply for Medicaid and you want to have as many options as possible, you would need an irrevocable trust. So this would be similar to going to the bank, getting a safe deposit box, filling out the paperwork, putting in that box the things that you just don't want to ever lose or risk losing. The banker gives you a key. If the safe deposit box is the asset protection trust, you have to give the key after you fund the trust to a trusted trustee. For some people, that's a child. For some people, it's a financial institution. The way you get things into the trust is subject to another more detailed webinar, but you retitle them. So instead of your name, they're in the name of your trustee for your trust. It's subject to the 5-year look back for Medicaid purposes, but the minute you transfer the ownership, they would be considered unavailable under the Medicaid qualification rules. And in that trust, it would say upon your death or you and your spouse's death, here is how everything in the trust goes, similar to your will. And everything can be modified consistent with your individualized plan. If you didn't do anything, it's never too late. If you've gotten to this point and you're like, oh, I'm not doing it, and you don't have financial powers of attorney, that could be a too late proposition. What do I mean by that? When you're applying for Medicaid, especially if you're married, there would be a reason to transfer assets from one spouse to the other because the applicant's spouse, as I said, can only have a few $1,000s in his or her name to qualify for Medicaid. If that applicant doesn't have capacity, meaning they don't understand what's going on, and they don't have a financial power of attorney, there could be a problem with transferring assets from one spouse to another. So definitely get the financial power of attorney or make sure it's up to date and meets your wishes. Under the current rules, and this varies with every client, if you have a good financial power of attorney that gives your agent lots of power or you're competent at the time of this crisis, we can usually still protect half or so of your assets for use at a later time, either by you, if you jump back and do better and don't need to be in a nursing home, or by your spouse. So keep that in mind. When you're applying for Medicaid, one of the other things to do when you're doing it, I don't recommend doing it yourself. Get expert advice. In Pennsylvania, we have what's called filial support law, which means the spouse or the family members can be liable for the care costs of a parent or a spouse. And that could mean at home, a personal care home, in a nursing home. This has been the law in Pennsylvania for hundreds of years. It was recodified back in, I believe it was July of 2005 under Act 43. But if your loved one, in my broken hip example, had the broken hip, went to the nursing home for rehab, wasn't able, because other things happened, to be discharged after the Medicare coverage ended, and then applied for Medicaid and found out that money had been given away within those 5 years, and they weren't eligible for Medicaid, the nursing facility does have the right to bring suit against the children for the care costs. There are some limitations on that, but just understand that their family liability is a possibility. So it was great talking with you today. So start the conversation, maybe between spouses, very early, with your children. Continue it as needed. Things change. Your plan's going to depend on your needs and goals, and they may change. So typically we recommend, if you already have a plan in place, that you look at it every 5 years or sooner if something changes. There's a death, there's an inheritance, somebody wins the lottery, or there's unfortunately a bad diagnosis, because time can be your enemy. And honestly, if there's a healthcare crisis, the last thing that you'd rather do or have your family do is talking to the lawyer about what needs to be done. You would rather have your family by your side. So take the time to plan ahead, learn about your choices. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I look forward to seeing some of you in person or by Zoom. If you have questions, again, and you need more education, go to our website, paelderlaw.com, or if you'd like to make an appointment, please call us at 1-800-401-4552. Take care and be safe.